الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters, this is lesson number 29 of our commentary on Qwa'id Attasawuf, principles of Sufism. And today is today we're going to speak about, we entered a new session. Section number 11. Section number 11. So he says, principle 126, what has been permitted for a cause or for a particular or general reason must not be indiscriminately implemented in all situations, to the point where it takes on such a special form that it is no longer than previously mentioned particular reason. No longer the previously mentioned particular reason. Thus, it's not proper to deduce that audition, sama', is unconditionally permissible from the fact that singing during celebrations and the like is permissible, nor is it proper to deduce from the fact that reciting poetry is acceptable that the well-known method of audition is acceptable on the score that it's particularly is probably of the same regime. Regime? Is that regime? For this reason, Ibn al-Fakihani, rahimahullah, in commenting on the Risala said, there is no text that either permits or bans audition, meaning for the specific purpose. Otherwise, it is permitted for celebrations, feast days, and the like, including legal festivals, and as an aid to work. Therefore, the question is to be decided on the basis of the legal rule of the things existent before the law addressed them, but God knows the best. Okay, I told you last time that this section is going to talk about the gospel songs, as I call it. And I told you that once, I think I said this in the beginning or in the introduction of this lecture, that in the beginning of the Sufism actually it was a way to worship God and focus on worshiping and purifying your heart. So therefore, the Sufis are the group of people who focus on these meanings. Now, the fuqaha focus on how to worship God, jurisprudence, stuff like that. All these things. How to marry, how to divorce, how to live, how to do all these types of things. And muhaddithun focus on how is this narration authentic or not authentic? Why is it like that? And who are the transmitters and stuff like that? All what has to do with this. Mufassirun, they comment on the meanings of the Holy Quran and carry on. Every branch of knowledge has its as experts. Now, the Sufis are the experts of training and purifying the heart and all what has to do with this. Okay? So therefore, in the beginning, they used to be very serious in worshiping God. They might stay the whole night praying. They might stay fasting the whole day. They were very serious in worshiping God. And because they get tired of worshiping, it's normal, human beings, they need to have a break. So what do they do in the break? They call one of them that has a beautiful voice and tell him, please, just give us some poems with a beautiful voice that would remind us that this life doesn't mean anything and the hereafter is the main life. And they might speak about loving God and stuff like that, all these types of things. Okay, so therefore, those types of songs or poems, they were called as-sama'. Sama' means something that you hear, which means he sings and you hear. And the elders, the senators, the shuyukh didn't used to participate in these types of things, as if this is only for the small, the young people, the beginners and stuff like that. We don't participate in these types of things. They just go away and leave the others, the beginners and stuff like that, to listen to that. Sometimes one of the audience used to get so excited he might shout because he hears some meanings that are attractive, so he says Allah, or he might even fall down because the meaning was so tough on his heart and he fell down. Some of them can die. It's like a shock. And this happens to several people that even when they listen to the verses of the Holy Quran that speak about paradise or speak about hellfire or whatever, they get shocked and they die. So in the beginning days, some scholars condemned these types of songs. They said, hey guys, what are you doing? We never heard that the Prophet ﷺ sat down and called his companions, and one of them started singing songs. No, this is not proper. Others said, no, this happened. The Prophet ﷺ sang some songs. It's not sang songs, but in their journeys when they used to travel, they call one of them that has a beautiful voice to start singing, so that the camels get happy. The camels love beautiful voice, and they start sometimes dancing. So once the Prophet ﷺ said to his companions, and he had an African driver. He used to drive the camel, and he had a very beautiful voice. And the women were over the camel, so the camel started dancing when he heard the beautiful voice. The Prophet ﷺ told him, his name was Anjasha. He said to him, Anjasha, be careful. You're driving with the bottles of glass. He called women bottles of glass. The woman, it's easy for the woman, it's easy to break the heart, or to break the heart of the woman. If you shout or scream or something, she starts crying. That's it. She gets she gets emotion quickly. So he said to her, he said to Anjasha, the African Sahabi that had a beautiful voice, he said, be careful, because the camels are driving with bottles, and the bottle, if it falls down, it gets broken. He said, سوقك بالقوارير يا أنجشة رفقا بالقوارير. Okay? رفقا يا أنجشة سوقك بالقوارير. So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ, once when they were digging the trench, they started singing some songs. نحن الذين بايعوا محمدا على الجهاد ما بقينا أبدا اللهم لولا أنت ما اهتدينا ولا تصدقنا ولا صلينا فأنزلا سكينة علينا. And the Prophet ﷺ used to sing with them, he used to participate with them, And there were some Africans of amongst the Sahaba that used to play and dance, this African dances with their spears and stuff like that. And they used to dance in circles and say, when they start singing, they say, Muhammadun Abdun Salih. Muhammad is a righteous servant. And the Prophet ﷺ was called his wife Aisha. She was still new. She was still young. He told her, look, come to see in the masjid, inside the masjid. It was it was exciting, a few Africans dancing in the masjid and praising the Prophet ﷺ in their songs. So Aisha said, I put my chick over his shoulders and I started watching them. And then he said to her, Is it enough for you? She said, I got satisfied, but I wanted to see myself. How does he love me? So I continued. I said, no, I'm still excited. All of a sudden, Umar entered and he started stoning them. He said, are you doing this in the masjid? The Prophet ﷺ said to him, stop, Umar. Let the Jews know that our religion is tolerance. Let the Jews know that our religion is tolerant. Or حتى يعلم يهود أن في ديننا فسحة, so that the Jews would know that our religion is open. You see? So he left them dance and sing these songs in the masjid. Now I want you to understand something very important. All these are resting, which means that the Sahaba used to sing songs and they're working, or when they're driving in the travel, so that they rest. It's not a sort of worship. It's not worshiping God by singing songs, okay? Number one. Number two, this happened. The Sahaba used to sing songs. The Prophet ﷺ sang songs. But all this was to rest, to comfort yourself, etc. This is the same thing that used to happen in the beginning of the Sufis. Later on, the Sufis started opening these songs until the songs became with dances. One of them used to start singing songs, and then one of them and all of them in a circle start dancing, raising their heads and coming down. And the guy is singing songs, and the others are saying, Allah, Allah. It's like giving a tone. And then they start saying, Hay, Allah, Hay, Allah. They're raising up and coming down, and the guy is singing songs. And sometimes they start, instead of saying Hay Allah, they start saying You don't understand even what they're saying. And they start dancing and hopping up, coming down. And sometimes in their turbans fall down. And and they claim that this is the circle of remembering Allah, halaqatul dhikr, that the Prophet ﷺ praised and said that any group of Muslims sit down in a circle and start praising God and remembering Him and stuff like that, He would angels would come there and they etc. What do I want to say here? That after centuries, this type of resting became the worship, and the Sufis, whenever they gather each other, whenever they gather in a house or something, they start dancing, and after they finish their dancing and singing songs, they go and eat, and that's it. Okay, where is the worship? How did they worship? They said, this is the worship. We're worshiping God now. And this made many scholars condemn this and tell them this is not a type of worship. And if you think that songs like that are a type of worship, that is an innovation and it might lead to apostatizing from Islam. And the disaster is that some groups started putting drums, using drums in this. So they say one of them has the drum and he starts dig, 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 and they're dancing, and the sheikh says, start singing the songs and they start dancing. And the disaster that there are groups that started using instruments and they claim that this is a type of worship. What is this? What is this? Is this Islam? It's not Islam at all. And this is what you can see in all types of Sufi groups nowadays. So therefore, Imam Zarruq rahimahullah, when he saw this, and he saw that people started exaggerating in these gospel songs, he said, look, wait a second. Let us speak about this. And all this section is all about this. So what does he say? He said, if something is permissible in some cases, or in a sort of way, that doesn't mean that every time it's permissible. Because, so he says, you can't go deriving the stories of the Prophet ﷺ, made some song. He told the Sahaba, did you have some songs in a party, in a wedding party, you know? He told them, did you make any songs? They said, no. What did we say? He said, yeah, because the Ansar love having fun. So they said, what should we say? He said, أتيناكم ولولا الحبة السمراء ما سمنت عذاريكم, etc. He gave them words to use in these songs. But this is a wedding. This is normal to give songs in a wedding, number one. So he said, it's not proper to derive from this that it's you can give songs whenever you want and wherever you are. Okay? And not because you heard that the Prophet ﷺ heard poems and some started giving him poems or praising him or something like that. That means you can do that wherever you want, whenever you want. And therefore he said that Imam al-Fakihani rahimahullah, who was one of the Tajuddin al-Fakihani, was one of the great jurists, Maliki jurists, and he has a commentary on Risalat ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. It's published. You can see it. You can use it or read it. It's in 5 volumes, I think. I have it in my house. It's published. So he says in his commentary on Risalat ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani rahimahullah, he said that there is nothing that prevents singing songs. And there's nothing that says, no, it's open. You do it whatever you want. Actually, there are the narrations that say that the Prophet ﷺ sang and his companions sang, said poems, but they used to say these poems with a tone. A normal tone, in their era, So, and we know that the Prophet ﷺ, in his era and his days, they used to sing songs in the festivals, or not festivals, like the Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, and all these. They used to sing songs, and once the Prophet ﷺ had 2 girls singing songs, 2 small girls singing songs, all of a sudden Umar entered, and he saw them. He said, you're doing this near the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ was sleeping. He just woke up. He said, just leave them. This is Eid. This is a holiday. Just leave them sing. There's no problem about that. So therefore, there's no problem about that. And when you're working, you're traveling, all these things are normal. There's nothing about that. There's nothing that prevents that. But this is not a worship. This is the main thing. There's difference between worshiping God or making a song or a dance that has to do with some cultures and stuff like that. For example, the African dances or the Indian dances or the Maori dances. You remember the Maori dances in New Zealand, I think, New Zealand. And all these types of, or Arabic dances. You have lots of Arabic dances wherever you go. And every culture has its own dances. So as long as there's nothing that is forbidden, no problem about that. But this is not a worship. It's a dance, culture, something like that. Okay? Just put this in your mind. Okay? And then he says here, Principle 127. Concerning matters before the law addressed them, it has been said, caution is best, so audition, sama, should not be approached, or permissibility is best, so audition should be permitted, or prohibition is best, so audition should be forbidden. The Sufis have differed, like the jurists, about this matter along the lines mentioned above. Shaykh Abu Ishaq al-Shatibi rahimahullah said, it's not originally or accidentally a part of Sufism. Rather, it was taken from the doings of the philosophers, or he said words to that effect. Under investigation, it appears that it is a doubtful act that should be avoided because it resembles a false doctrine, since it is an amusement. It should be avoided except out of necessity that requires one to have recourse to it, so it may be permitted as a result. Al-Maqdisi mentioned that Abu Mus'ab asked Malik rahimahullah about it. He said, I don't know except that the people of knowledge in our country neither reject nor renounce it. No one renounces it except a stupid devotee or a harsh, ignorant man. Salih ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah said, I saw my father listening to an audition session at our neighbors from behind the wall. Ibn al-Musayyib said to a group finding faults with poetry, they are living the life of foreign ascetics. It's true that Malik disapproved of audition and found it reprehensible, but its lawfulness can be deducted from Mudawwana. Mudawwana is the book that has lots of sayings of Imam Malik in all branches of religion. All of that on condition that it is devoid of musical instruments. Otherwise, all agree that it's forbidden except for Al-Anbari and Ibrahim ibn Sa'd. Al-Anbari and Ibrahim ibn Sa'd, whose views are known. At-Tartushi and others have exaggerated in their opinions about religion. Investigation indicates that opinion is more inclined towards prohibition, but God knows the best. Okay. Now, anything in the world, not the worships, anything, is it permissible or it's forbidden? Some say, we don't know. It might be permissible, it might be forbidden. But the most accepted opinion, so according to these guys, okay, we don't know. So audience, as he called it, or these gospel songs, or any songs, we don't know. It's not, as long as we don't have anything that permits it, well, it's, we don't know. We stop. But the second opinion says that everything in the world is permissible as long as there's nothing that forbids it. And this is the most accepted opinion. According to this, singing songs is permissible. And that's why you might notice this. Wine. Don't you know, or don't you feel that there is nothing in the Old Testament that forbids drinking wine, there's nothing that forbids it, which means that wine is not forbidden in the ancient scriptures. But what is forbidden is drinking a lot of wine until you become drunk and you lose your conscience. So drinking a lot and being addicted to intoxicated beverages, this is condemned in the Old Testament and in the Old Law. But drinking a small cup or something like that, that doesn't make you get drunk, it's not forbidden, according to the Old Testament. And in the beginning of Islam, the same, because there's nothing that said that wine is forbidden. Yes, there are some people who forbade wine for themselves. They just said we don't drink it, like the Prophet ﷺ himself. He was protected from drinking. But there are Sahaba that used to drink. Hamza, the Prophet ﷺ's uncle, used to drink. And many Sahaba used to drink because it wasn't forbidden. You see? So therefore, anything before the Sharia says it's haram, that means it's permissible. Now the last opinions say, no, everything is forbidden until you have an evidence that says it's legal. No, this is the weakest opinion. It's weak. He says that the Sufi scholars have the same opinion. Why? Some of them say the first opinion, the second opinion, the third opinion. So they have these three opinions because they follow their imams. Al-Imam Abu Ishaq Shatibi, one of the great Andalusian scholars, or the latest Andalusian scholars, I told you that he has his book, Al-I'tisam, and it's a great book that shows what is the bid'ah, or the innovation, and how do we understand the innovation. So he's very strict in that. He says in his book, Al-Shatibi, he says in his book, Al-I'tisam, so listening to gospel songs is a way in Sufism. No, he says gospel songs or songs are not part of Sufism. It doesn't have anything to do by Sufism. And no one of the ancient scholars used to claim that gospel songs are part of worshiping God. And I saw that these types of things are derived from something else, from other cultures like the philosophers. Okay? So therefore, as Shatibi rahimahullah says, that gospel songs don't have anything to do with religion. Call it culture, call it fun, call it anything, but don't call it part of religion. Okay? Nowadays in Morocco, in many other countries, when they have a funeral ceremony, they get these guys and they start singing these songs and they start dancing. What a sort of funeral, what kind of funeral ceremony is this that makes you sing and dance? And sometimes they put the dead person who is in his shrine or his shroud, or how do you call it, shroud, and they start dancing and circling him and dancing. Actually, this is so funny. So he says that the most accepted opinion, this is Zarruq, is that these types of songs are something that you have to avoid. Something that you have to avoid. Unless there is something that obliges you to do it, and that's permissible. Now, Abu Tahir al-Maqdisi, who was one of the muhaddithun, and he was a great muhaddith, and he has a book called Qwa'id Attasawuf. It's a big book that narrates by his transmitted his isnad to the Prophet ﷺ, all things that have to do with Sufism. What does he say? Abu Tahir al-Maqdisi says that Abu Mus'ab al-Zuhri, one of the great students of Imam Malik, and he was later on the judge of Medina after Imam Malik passed away, he said, I asked Malik about these types of songs, Sufism. He said, Abu Mus'ab, I asked Malik, and he said, I don't know. But the scholars in our country, in our city, Medina, used to condemn that, and they don't sit down listening to these types of songs. And, no, wait a second. He says that scholars in our city didn't use to condemn that. Although they don't sit down there. They say, we want to do it, just sing some, but they don't sit down there. And they say, or he says, I don't know, he says or they say, that no one condemns this except a stupid ascetic or somebody who is ignorant and he doesn't know what to say. Salih, son of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, said, I saw my father listening to these songs behind the wall. And our neighbors had these songs there. So he listened to it and didn't have any problem about that. Sa'id ibn Musayyib rahimahullah, one of the great imams of Medina from the Tabi'een, he said to some people who condemn poetry that these guys followed a non-Arabic asceticism, and he said, and they say that it was by an authentic opinion that Imam Malik rahimahullah said that Imam Malik, sometimes he said he condemned it, and sometimes he said, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. So therefore, Imam Malik rahimahullah didn't praise. And look what Imam said in Mudawwana. He says, Ibn al-Qasim asked Imam Malik rahimahullah, he says, what do you say about hiring somebody to teach my son poetry? So he says that Imam Malik says, I don't like that. I get somebody to teach my son poetry. No, I don't want that. And I gave him money for that. So he told him, Ibn al-Qasim, he said to him, okay, tell me about somebody who hired somebody to write for him poetry, or some shouting and crying about somebody who passed away, or write a mushaf. So Imam Malik said, writing a mushaf, there's no problem about that. And so he wrote for him some poems. No, what he said. So he says that Imam Malik says, writing a mushaf, no problem about that. To give him a book and write the whole Quran in a mushaf, no problem about that. But to write poetry and crying about dead people, he says, Ibn al-Qasim says, I didn't hear anything about that from Imam Malik, and I don't like that. And that's something that I don't like. Because he condemned, or he disliked that books of jurisprudence are not supposed to be sold. So therefore, books of jurisprudence, of poetry, are more than that to not be sold. This is what Imam Malik says, and what Ibn al-Qasim took from him or derived from his book. Al-Mudawwana of Imam Malik rahimahullah seems that it doesn't have any problem about singing songs as long as there's no instruments, or else all scholars agree that it's haram. So singing songs by using instruments is haram according to the Maliki school, but not only that, according to the majority of scholars. And he says that Al-Ambari and Ibrahim ibn Sa'd, both of them had a specific opinion about songs, and I don't agree about that. Except that Ubaydullah al-Ambari and Ibrahim ibn Sa'd said, no, you don't have any problem about it. It's Ibrahim ibn Sa'd, Ibrahim ibn Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and he was a great imam, muhaddith, but he used to love singing songs and playing the oud. And all scholars agree that most scholars, not only the four imams, even the Shia and all types of schools forbid using instruments in singing songs. So it's something that all Muslim scholars agree, except few people like Ibn Hazm and stuff like that, who don't matter about using music. Okay? So the majority of scholars say that the majority of scholars believe that it's haram to use instruments and stuff like that. He says that Imam Abu Bakr al-Tartushi, rahimahullah, one of the great imams of Malikis, he has his book on Sunnah. It'll read, inshallah. Okay? So, Abu Bakr al-Tartushi, rahimahullah, has a book about gospel songs. And he condemns it. He said, no, it's haram. So he says that he exaggerated. All songs are haram, even any types of songs. Not only him, there are other imams that said something similar to that. Okay? Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Okay. Principle 128. A person's belief that an act not leading to proximity to God does indeed lead to proximity is an innovation. The same applies to establishing a law without precedence. All of the above is in error unless it refers back to a fundamental principle from which it was deduced, and thus its legal rule refers to the principle. There is no proof recommended audition among those who accept it, even though people have discussed it in detail. For investigation shows that for those who permit its audition is a dispensation, that it is allowed out of necessity. In general, its conditions must be upheld, otherwise it is prohibited. But God knows the best. Look, now here he's going step by step to show you. Now, if you believe that something which is not a sort of worship, you believe it's a worship, like Sufis believe that dancing and singing songs it's worshiping God, and that what they're doing it's like they're praying or they're fasting or whatever, and they believe that this is the best thing to do. Singing and dancing and sometimes playing with the drums or with the instruments is worshiping God. So any innovation, any new ruling that wasn't in the old books, and no scholar said it, this is innovation, and this would lead you to go astray. Unless you have an evidence, where are you going to get the evidence from? So he says that singing these gospel songs does not have any proof that would make it preferable or even permissible. So therefore, anyone who said it's permissible, he would tell you that it's permissible for a reason, or it's permissible with some conditions, or else it's not permissible, it's haram. Okay? Then it says, principle 129, one's preparation to be receptive depends on how one listens to what is taught. He who listens with the truth will achieve realization. He who listens with the ego will occur a bad state. He who listens with his natural disposition benefits only temporarily. Thus, a seeker of knowledge who inclines towards the worldly will only be increased by God in inclination away from the truth. Most people don't benefit from public festivities such as marriages, funerals, and the like, except as an enjoyment at that time. It benefits the possessors of truth in whatever form it comes. So understand. Now he says that when you open your heart to understand something and listen to the meanings, you would benefit from that. And therefore, if you listen to a beautiful, even from a song, you can derive from it some beautiful meanings. So therefore, the one who listens to beautiful meanings, he would benefit from it. And therefore, what he says here, he says that most people who participate in all types of big festivals or funerals or stuff like that, they don't benefit from it at all. They just listen to the meanings and stuff like that, and that's it. They go away, that's it. And then he says, whatever emerges from the heart enters the heart, and whatever is limited to the tongue doesn't go beyond his ears. Then, upon penetrating the hearts, it may encounter an opposing force totally rejecting it, as in the case of non-believers, or reluctance, as in the case of hypocrites. On a thin veil interferes, or a thin veil interferes with its touching the heart, as in the case of sinners, or it may touch its essence, are and reality. So that boldness and restraint with respect as with respect to its regime and are necessary as in the case of novices. As for the Gnostic and the benefits, he benefits from everything that benefits, whether it comes from the hearts or elsewhere. So understand. So he says anything that goes from the heart, it goes to the... Yeah, you find somebody who's sincere. When he gives a speech, a lot of people repent and they might enter the religion. Now, sometimes there are people who keep on speaking. They just their words drop in an ear of somebody that makes them benefit from it. And sometimes it goes to the hearts directly. Okay. Now, things when they enter the hearts, it might have some obstacles that won't accept it. Like what happens to the non-believers, infidels. Infidels, somebody who is not Muslim, and you go speaking to him, he either opens his heart to listen to you or he doesn't even pay attention to what you're saying. Yeah, he says, yeah, and he doesn't even pay attention to what you're saying. Like many Jews and Christians and others. Okay? Or they might pretend that they're benefiting, but they're not, like the hypocrites. They claim that they're Muslims, but they're not Muslims. Or else, there is a thin veil that makes them, it's an obstacle between them and you. Like what happens to many wrongdoers. Or it might touch the hearts and they will change and work. Like lots of people of truth. And like great worshippers of God, he calls them Gnostics. So he says these types of people worship God and whatever they do is accepted. Okay? Okay, so therefore the Gnostic searches for anything to benefit from. This is what he's trying to say. Principle 131. Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, what is good in poetry is good, and what is bad is bad. He who quotes it follows he who quotes followers the poets in beginning circumstances. Oh no, he who quotes it follows the poets in being criticized or praised. Furthermore, in all probability it depends on the intention of the reciter, whether he is an author or he is the author or a coder, just as it depends on the intention of the listener. So, consideration of the state of both. The person addressed and the reciter is required. A base attribute may not be attributed to an honorable person because that is immoral conduct, and the opposite is unacceptable because it violates violates and the opposite is unacceptable because it violates a state. Illustrating this is the following that has been reported. Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz rahimahullah said to a person who saw him in a dream, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Haqq, in God al-Haqq, who is the truth, the infinite truth. Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz said to a person, he saw him in a dream, God al-Haqq placed me in front of himself and said, are you describing me with the same attributes attributed to Layla and Su'ad? I not behold you at the spiritual station wherein you purely desired me. I would have punished you. So understand. Okay. So Imam Shafi'i says poetry is like words. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. That's it. You can't say poetry is haram or not haram. No. It's something that goes according to the words that it says. Okay? So therefore, anyone who sings, who says something, we have to see his intention. What does he... So therefore, we go back to the intention. And the same thing happens with those who their poetry all is... the poetry has to do with beautiful words or not beautiful words. The songs have to do with the meanings. So actually, we don't condemn songs. Songs aren't condemned. You condemn what is said in the song. So if it has bad meanings, it's condemned. If it has good meanings, it's good. No problem about that. If the intention is that we're worshiping God by singing songs, that's wrong. If it's type of benefiting from the words or just resting a little bit or whatever, that's good. No problem about that. And Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz, one of the great old Sufis, somebody saw him in a dream. So he said to him, what happened to you? How are you? He said, a guy saw me in a dream and a guy said, he said to him, what happened to you, Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz? What happened to you? He said, well, God put me and asked me, why do you keep on calling me names of girls? Layla, Su'da, and stuff like that. If I didn't look at you and I knew that you have a good intention about that, I would have tortured you. What does this mean? Now, many Sufi poems keep on speaking about loving Layla, loving Su'da, drinking wine, going to the bar. So what do they mean by that? The bar, they mean the house of worship. Wine means getting drunk in loving God. God, the love of God, is loving Su'da and Layla and these girl names. So some scholars condemned this. Why are you speaking as if you're singing about sexual and bad meanings? And actually you're speaking about God and beautiful meanings. So he said that God, when he saw Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz, when Abu Sa'id al-Kharraz was seen in the dream, he said that God was going to punish him, but he forgave him because he had a good intention. Okay, just leave it here. And see you later, inshallah. Thank you very much for being patient with me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I'm so sorry, a bit tired today. Assalamu alaikum.